The stars burned with the light of dying worlds. Commander Kong Su stood at the bridge window of the human battleship Iron Will, watching the distant flashes that marked another planet's death. Each flash meant millions of lives snuffed out by the Hegemony Coalition, the alien empire that had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. "Sir, we're getting another distress signal," called out Lieutenant Park Min from her station. Her young face was tight with anger as she listened to the desperate voices crackling through space. "It's from the Vega colony. They're saying the Coalition fleet just arrived." Kung Su closed his eyes for a moment. He had grown up hearing these same cries for help, watching the same pattern repeat across 100 worlds. The Coalition would arrive with their massive crystal ships, demand total surrender, and then reduce everything to ash if the locals resisted. Even surrender only bought time before the aliens decided the world was better off empty. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 6 hours before they start the bombardment," Parkman replied, her voice barely a whisper. 6 hours, not enough time to save them, just like all the others. Kong Su felt the familiar weight of helplessness settle on his shoulders. Humanity had been watching this slaughter for 50 years, building their fleet in secret while the galaxy burned around them. But they were still not ready. Their ships were too few, their weapons too primitive compared to the Coalition's energy beams that could slice through planets. The Coalition ruled through fear and overwhelming power. Their warships were living crystal mountains that floated through space, powered by exotic energy sources humans barely understood. When they fired their weapons, entire cities vanished in seconds. Their shields could turn aside any attack humanity had ever tried. Commander Liwan approached from the tactical station, his weathered face grim. "Sir, the scout reports are coming in from the outer systems. The Coalition is moving faster than usual. They're not even bothering with surrender demands anymore." Kong Su nodded. The aliens had grown tired of even pretending to be merciful. Now they simply arrived and began killing, treating every world like a pest to be eliminated. The free colonies that still existed were scattered and desperate, hiding in asteroid fields or on the edges of space where the Coalition rarely bothered to look. "What about the resistance fleets?" Kong Su asked, though he already knew the answer. "The Andromedans lost their last 3 ships at Proxima. The Tausetians are down to 2 destroyers and a handful of fighters. Everyone else is either dead or in hiding," Li Wan reported. The galaxy's defenders were almost gone. For generations, alien races had tried to stand against the Coalition's might. The proud warriors of Rigel had lasted 6 months. The tech masters of Alpha Centauri had built massive defense platforms that fell in a single day. Even the mysterious energy beings from the galactic core had been hunted down and destroyed. Humanity remained hidden because they were considered primitive, while other races had developed exotic technologies and powerful energy weapons. Humans still used simple metal ships and chemical rockets. The Coalition's scouts had visited Earth decades ago, taken one look at humanity's crude technology, and marked them as not yet spacefaring in their databases. It was a mistake that might be humanity's only advantage. "Sir," Park Min spoke up. "Again, there's something else. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the galactic core. Deep space monitoring stations are picking up massive power spikes from sectors that have been empty for millions of years." Kong Su frowned. The galactic core was supposedly dead space, filled with black holes and stellar remnants, too dangerous for any civilization to explore. Ancient legends spoke of something terrible that slept there, but no one took such stories seriously anymore. "Probably just cosmic phenomena," Li Wan said dismissively. "We have bigger problems to worry about." Through the bridge windows, another star flickered and died as the Coalition continued their systematic destruction of free worlds. Kong Su watched the light fade and felt something harden in his chest. 50 years of watching, 50 years of waiting while billions died. Humanity had built their fleet in secret, trained their crews in hidden bases, and prepared for this war. But they had been too careful, too afraid, to act. "Signal the fleet," Kong Su said quietly. "All ships, all crews." "Sir?" Park Min looked up in surprise. "Send a message to every human ship in space. Tell them the waiting is over." Kong Su turned from the window, his face set with determination. "We're going to war." Li Wen's eyes widened. "Sir, the Admiralty hasn't authorized full engagement. Our orders are to observe and gather intelligence. The Admiralty is sitting safely on Earth while the galaxy burns," Kong Su replied. "I'm done watching children die while we prepare for a perfect moment that will never come." The communications officer's fingers hesitated over her controls. "What message should I send, sir?" Kong Su looked out at the dying stars one more time, then back at his crew. These young faces represented humanity's hope, trained and ready for a war that everyone said they could not win. "Tell them humanity enters the battle today." Deep in the heart of Coalition space, Intelligence Officer Yan Hua stared at her screens with growing confusion. The data streams flowing across her monitors made no sense according to everything she had learned about galactic civilization. Her webbed fingers clicked nervously against the crystalline control surface as she tried to understand what she was seeing. "These signals are impossible," she muttered to herself. The readings showed electromagnetic radiation patterns that belonged to a technology museum, not a spacefaring civilization. Chemical rocket burns, nuclear fusion signatures, and primitive radio waves all pointed to a species that should barely be able to reach their own moon, let alone cross interstellar space. Her assistant, a floating mass of neural tissue called Glob 15, pulsed with dim bioluminescence as it processed the data. "Perhaps the sensors are damaged. No civilization uses such backward technology." Yan Hua had served in Coalition intelligence for 40 years. She had seen the rise and fall of dozens of species, watched as they developed from primitive hunter-gatherers to star-spanning empires before the Coalition crushed them. Every species followed the same pattern. They started with chemical rockets, advanced to antimatter drives, then developed exotic energy systems and reality manipulation technology. It was the natural order of technological progress. But these signals from the Sol system suggested something different. A species that had somehow learned to cross the void between stars, while still using the crude technology of their early space age. It was like finding someone who had learned to fly by flapping their arms. "Run another deep scan," she ordered. "Focus on the outer edge of their system. If they're truly spacefaring, there should be evidence of infrastructure." The results came, back 3 hours later, and they only made the mystery deeper. The Sol system showed signs of massive industrial activity, but all of it was wrong. Instead of the elegant energy-based manufacturing that every advanced species used, these creatures were still moving physical materials around. They were mining asteroids with primitive robots and building enormous structures out of metal and ceramic. "They're using kinetic weapons," Glob 15 observed, its neural mass flickering with disbelief. "Solid projectiles accelerated by chemical, explosives, and magnetic fields." Yan Hua laughed despite herself. "That's ridiculous. Kinetic weapons haven't been used for warfare in over 2,000 years. Any decent energy shield can stop them." But the evidence was there in the scanner. Data. Huge railgun installations orbiting their homeworld, missile construction facilities, and ships bristling with metal cannons instead of proper energy weapons. It was as if this species had decided to skip the last millennium of military technology development. The first patrol reports began arriving the next day. Scout Captain Zix Morton transmitted from the rim sectors, his voice tight with confusion. "Intelligence Command, we've had contact with unknown vessels near the Kepler system. They appeared without warning and engaged immediately." Yan Hua pulled up the tactical data from the encounter. The enemy ships were crude boxes of welded metal, their hulls scarred and pitted from space travel. They moved with chemical thrusters and maneuvered like atmospheric aircraft rather than proper spacecraft. But they had attacked a coalition patrol with suicidal aggression, launching swarms of primitive missiles while closing two impossible ranges. "What happened to the patrol?" she asked. "All ships lost," Zixmorton replied, his voice hollow. "Their weapons ignored our shields completely. Solid projectiles punched right through our defense systems like they weren't even there. The news sent shockwaves through Coalition Command. For 3,000 years, their energy shields had been impenetrable. Every species in the galaxy used energy weapons because kinetic projectiles were considered obsolete technology. The shields were designed to deflect or absorb energy beams, not stop chunks of metal traveling at significant fractions of light speed. More reports flooded in over the following days. Strange human ships appearing at the edges of Coalition territory, hitting supply convoys and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Their tactics were primitive but effective, relying on overwhelming firepower and complete disregard for their own safety. "They fight like animals," complained Admiral Vex Corian during an emergency strategy meeting. "No honor, no proper formation tactics. They just charge in and start shooting." Yan Hua studied the battle recordings with professional interest. The humans did fight differently from any species she had observed. They used their ships like guided missiles, ramming coalition vessels when their ammunition ran out. Their pilots showed no fear of death, pressing attacks that any rational being would have abandoned. "There's something else," she reported to the assembled command staff. "Our psychological analysis suggests they're not following standard galactic behavior patterns. Most species develop space travel to escape their homeworld's limitations. These humans seem to have developed it specifically for war." "Impossible," scoffed Admiral Vex Corian. "Every civilization goes through a peaceful exploration phase before they become aggressive. It's basic social evolution." But the evidence suggested otherwise. Human ship designs were purely military, built for combat rather than exploration or trade. Their technology focused on weapons and armor rather than the energy manipulation and reality engineering that marked truly advanced civilizations. A new report arrived as the meeting continued. Lieutenant Park SEO from the monitoring station transmitted with obvious fear in her voice. "Command, we're detecting massive fleet movements from the Sol system. Hundreds of ships, all heading toward Coalition space." The command chamber fell. Silent, Yan Hua felt a chill run through her crystalline body as she realized what this meant. Humanity was not a primitive species stumbling into interstellar politics. They were an entire civilization that had spent decades preparing for war, building fleets in secret while the galaxy ignored them. "How long until they reach our territory?" Admiral Vex Corian asked. 72 hours, came the reply. The unknown signal had been a declaration of war. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like iron hammers falling from heaven. Admiral Kim Jae watched from the bridge of the battleship Steel Thunder as dozens of coalition warships hung in orbit around Kepler-4 for Tubei, their crystal hulls glowing with deadly energy as they bombarded the planet below. "Tactical report," Kim Jae ordered, his voice calm despite the rage burning in his chest. "Lieutenant Song, you worked quickly at her station. 67 enemy vessels, sir, mostly cruiser class, with 4 battleships. They're targeting civilian evacuation centers and refugee camps." Through the main screen, Kim Jae could see the beautiful blue world of Kepler-4 to be. Bright flashes marked where coalition energy beams struck the surface. Each flash representing thousands of innocent lives ended in an instant. The aliens were not even pretending this was a military operation. They were simply killing everyone they could find. "Orders from Earth Command?" asked Commander Park Tae, the ship's tactical officer. "Earth Command is 3 months away by fastest courier," Kim Jae replied. "By then, everyone on that planet will be dead." He paused, watching another evacuation ship explode under coalition fire. We act now. Sir, our orders were to observe and report back, Park Tae said carefully. Kim Jae turned to face his bridge crew. These young men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment, but they had been told to wait for perfect conditions, for better odds, for approval from politicians who had never seen a world die. I've watched 6 systems burn while waiting for the perfect moment, he said quietly. No more. Signal all ships. Attack formation Omega. No warnings, no mercy. The human fleet moved forward like a pack of metal sharks. Their ships were ugly, compared to the elegant crystal vessels of the Coalition, built from steel and ceramic, instead of grown from living crystal. But they had been designed for one purpose only: to kill the enemies of humanity. Captain Lee Min piloted her fighter through the opening moments of battle. Her squadron of 12 small craft diving toward the massive Coalition flagship, the enemy. Ship was beautiful in its alien way, a growing crystal mountain that sparkled with internal light. It was also 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Dragon Squadron. This is Dragon Leader, Lee Min called over the radio. Remember your training. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't give them time to think. The Coalition had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years because their technology seemed unstoppable. Their energy shields could turn aside any weapon known to galactic civilization. Their crystal hulls could regenerate from almost any damage. Their crews had centuries of experience in space combat, but they had never fought humans before. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up space with nuclear fire. Railgun rounds traveling at 20% of light speed slammed into Coalition shields and passed through them like they were made of air. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop energy weapons, not solid chunks of metal, moving at incredible speed. Admiral Zixcanner stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, watching in disbelief as his supposedly invincible fleet began to die. How is this possible? He demanded. Their technology is primitive. Our shields should stop anything they can throw at us. His tactical officer, a crystalline being whose voice rang like broken glass, replied with obvious panic. Sir, they're using kinetic weapons, solid projectiles. Our shields were never designed to stop physical objects. On the human flagship, Lieutenant Song Yu coordinated the attack with cold precision. Second wave, target their command ships. Third wave, protect the fighters. All missile boats, full spread on the battleships. The space around Kepler-442b became a storm of explosions and flying metal. Human ships pressed their attacks with suicidal courage, closing 2 ranges where their smaller guns could punch through crystal armor. When their ammunition ran out, some ships rammed enemy vessels, their crews dying to take down ships 10 times their size. Captain Lee Min's fighter squadron reached the Coalition flagship and began their attack run. The massive crystal ship tried to swat them away with point defense lasers, but the humans were too fast and too determined. Lee Min's nuclear torpedo struck the ship's main power core, and for a moment the ancient vessel's lights flickered. Dragon Leader to all ships, she called out as her damaged fighter spiraled away from the explosion. The big one is hurt. Pour everything you've got into it. The human fleet concentrated their fire on the wounded flagship. Railgun rounds, missile swarms, and even ramming attacks from damaged ships all focused on the Crystal Mountain. Slowly, inevitably, the Coalition's pride began to crack and die. Admiral Zixcanner evacuated to an escape pod just before his flagship exploded in a flash of crystal and energy. As he drifted in space, he watched the primitive human ships systematically destroy what remained of his fleet. When the battle ended, the space around Kepler-442b was filled with the wreckage of both fleets. But the human ships still moved, still fought, still protected the world below. They had lost half their fleet, but they had one. Admiral Kim Jae opened a communication channel that reached every surviving ship in the system, both human and alien. This is Admiral Kim J. of the Human Expeditionary Force. We came here to stop a massacre, and we have succeeded. But this is just the beginning." He looked out at the stars, where more coalition fleets waited in the darkness. "Humanity has entered this war, and we will not stop until the galaxy is free." The first blood had been spilled. There would be much more to come. In the deepest part of the galaxy, where ancient stars died in the crushing embrace of black holes, something that had slept for 5 million years began to wake up. The quantum disruptions from humanity's nuclear weapons had traveled across space like ripples in a dark pond, finally reaching sensors that had waited in silence since before any current species had learned to make fire. Deep beneath layers of twisted space and collapsed matter, vast mechanical minds stirred to life. The Black Armada had been built by a civilization so old that even their name had been forgotten by time. They had created these ships for one purpose: to keep the galaxy clean of biological contamination. Lieutenant Namsu monitored the deep space arrays from her station aboard the human cruiser Braveheart. She had been tracking unusual energy readings for 3 days now, signals that seemed to come from empty space near the galactic core. At first she thought it was just cosmic background noise, but the patterns were too regular, too purposeful. "Captain Ohai," she called out, "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors. Massive power signatures from sectors that should be completely dead." Captain Ohai moved to look at the displays. She was a veteran of the first human victories against the Coalition, her ship scarred from a dozen battles. But what she saw on the sensor readings made her blood run cold. "Those power levels are impossible," she whispered. "Nothing that big should be able to exist." The first sign of what was coming appeared near the Coalition stronghold of Rigel Prime. The planet was heavily fortified, protected by energy shields that could stop a fleet, and defended by thousands of the Coalition's best warships. It had never fallen to any enemy in 2,000 years of warfare. Then space began to bend. Admiral Zixcanner had retreated to Rigel Prime after his defeat at Kepler 44, to be gathering what remained of his forces to plan revenge against the humans. He stood in the command center of the planet's orbital fortress, studying tactical displays that showed human fleets advancing on 3 fronts. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we're detecting spatial anomalies in the outer system. Something large is approaching." The first Black Armada ship emerged from folded space like a nightmare made real. It was 3 kilometers of pure obsidian, smooth as black glass, and shaped like a blade designed to cut reality itself. No light showed on its hull, no energy signatures betrayed its weapons, but space itself seemed to ripple and distort around it. "What is that thing?" Admiral Zixcanner demanded. Before anyone could answer, the impossible ship opened fire, but it did not use energy beams or kinetic weapons. Instead, it used something far worse. Where its weapons touched, matter simply stopped existing. Entire Coalition battleships didn't explode or burn. They just vanished as if they had never been there at all. The defense platforms around Rigel Prime fired everything they had at the black ship. Energy beams that could melt mountains struck its hull and disappeared without effect. Missiles armed with antimatter warheads detonated against its surface and achieved nothing. The ship moved through the defensive fire like it was walking through falling leaves. In 17 minutes, the entire Rigel system was empty. 4 billion Coalition citizens, 1,000 warships, and one of the most powerful military installations in the galaxy had simply ceased to exist. The Black Armada ship hung in the void for a moment, scanning for any remaining biological contamination, then folded space around itself and disappeared. The news reached both human and Coalition forces within hours. Captain Ohai received the reports with growing horror as system after system went dark. The pattern was always the same: massive spatial distortions, brief engagement, then absolute silence. "They're not trying to conquer anything," she realized. They're sterilizing everything. More Black Armada ships began emerging from the galactic core. Dozens, then hundreds of the obsidian vessels spread out across known space like a plague of mechanical death. They showed no interest in politics or territory. They simply found biological life and erased it from existence. The Coalition High Command sent desperate messages to Admiral Kim Jae, begging for a ceasefire. The proud alien empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was collapsing in panic as their worlds died one by one. Admiral Kim, the transmission began. This is High Admiral Yeon Mak of the Coalition Defense Force. We formally surrender all claims to contested territory. Please, you must help us. Whatever we awakened, it's killing everything. Kim Jae studied the tactical displays showing the expanding zone of destruction. 37 star systems had gone silent in the past week. The Black Armada was moving, faster than any fleet should be able to travel, striking deep into both coalition and neutral territory. Lieutenant Song Yu worked frantically at her station, trying to analyze the weapon signatures from the few surviving sensor records. Sir, their technology operates on principles we don't understand. They're manipulating reality itself, deleting matter at the quantum level. How do we fight something like that? Commander Park Tae asked. Kim Jae watched another star system disappear from the galactic map. The enemy that humanity had spent decades preparing to fight suddenly seemed insignificant compared to this ancient threat that consumed entire civilizations like they were bacteria. A new message arrived from the Coalition, this time from someone. Kim Jae recognized Intelligence Officer Yan Hua, who had first detected humanity's entry into the war. Admiral Kim, our analysis suggests these ships have been dormant for millions of years. Your nuclear weapons may have triggered their awakening protocols. They're treating all biological life as a contamination to be removed. The irony was not lost on Kim Jae. Humanity had entered the galactic war to save the innocent and free the oppressed. Instead, they had awakened something that wanted to kill everyone in the galaxy. The real war was just beginning. The impossible alliance gathered at the edge of the galactic core, where space itself seemed to twist and bend under the gravity of ancient black holes. Admiral Kim Jae stood on the bridge of the Steel Thunder, looking out at a sight no one had ever imagined: human warships flying alongside coalition vessels. Their former enemies now, desperate allies against a threat that wanted to kill everything alive in the galaxy. Final count, Lieutenant Song Yu, Kim Jae ordered. 437 human ships, 612 coalition vessels, and about 50 ships from various independent systems, she reported. Everyone who's still alive and able to fight. It was the largest fleet ever assembled, but Kim Jae knew it might not be enough. The Black Armada had destroyed over 100 star systems in just 2 weeks. Their obsidian ships moved through space like death itself, erasing entire civilizations with weapons that operated beyond the understanding of current science. Captain Li Min had survived the early battles and now commanded a mixed squadron of human fighters and coalition interceptors. She found herself flying wing with Zix's pilot Karin, a crystalline being she had been trying to kill just a month ago. Human Captain, Zix's pilot Karan spoke through the communication link. Our ships work very differently. How do we coordinate our attacks? Simple, Li Min replied. We all want to live through this. Just follow my lead and shoot at the same targets. The cultural differences that had seemed so important during the war now meant nothing. Humans breathed oxygen, while the coalition species used methane or energy fields. But they all bled when cut and died when their ships exploded. Facing extinction had a way of making everyone realize they were more alike than different. Commander Park Tae worked alongside coalition tactical officers, sharing human battle plans with aliens who had been enemies just days ago. The language barriers were overcome with simple drawings and desperate gestures, as both sides tried to figure out how to fight an enemy that could erase matter from reality. The Black Armada ships seem to be immune to energy weapons, reported Coalition Admiral Jan Mack. Our most powerful energy beams have no effect at all. What about kinetic weapons? Kim J asked. It was the same advantage humans had used against Coalition shields. Sometimes the old, simple ways worked better than advanced technology. We've never tested solid projectiles against them, Jan Mack admitted. Our civilization abandoned such primitive weapons millennia ago. Kim J smiled grimly. Then it's time for you to learn how humans fight. The first Black Armada ships appeared as tears in space itself, reality splitting apart to reveal the obsidian vessels within. They were each 3 kilometers of perfect darkness, their hulls so black they seemed to absorb light itself. No energy signatures showed on any scanner, no heat, no radiation, just emptiness shaped like a knife. All ships, attack formation Delta, Kim J commanded. Human vessels will lead the assault. Coalition ships follow our targeting data and fire everything you have. The battle began with the largest kinetic bombardment in galactic history. Human railguns fired solid tungsten rods at 20% of light speed, while missile swarms filled the space between fleets. The Coalition ships, equipped with new solid projectile weapons built from human designs, added their own metal storm to the assault. For the first time since Awakening, the Black Armada ships showed damage. The kinetic rounds punched through their reality-warping defenses, because the weapons were too simple and stupid to be affected by exotic physics. Metal moving fast was just metal moving fast. No matter how advanced your defenses were, Lieutenant Nam Su coordinated the targeting from her station, marking priority targets as the Obsidian ships began to respond. Sir, they're adapting to our attacks. The newer ships are showing improved kinetic resistance. Then we hit them harder, Kim J replied. He opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. This is Admiral Kim. We didn't come this far to watch the galaxy die. All ships, maximum rate of fire. If we run out of ammunition, ram them. Captain Lee Min's fighter squadron dove through the crossfire, their mixed group of human and alien pilots working together with desperate efficiency. The Black Armada point defenses tried to swat them away, but the fighters were too many and too determined. Dragon Leader to all fighters, Lee Min called out. Target their weapon nodes. Even if we can't kill them, we can make them hurt less. The space around the galactic core became a storm of metal and energy, as two very different ideas of existence clashed. The Black Armada wanted perfect sterility, a galaxy cleansed of the chaos and unpredictability of biological life. The Alliance fleet represented something messy and imperfect, different species working together despite their differences, making mistakes but learning from them, surviving through stubborn refusal to give up. Commander Park Tae watched the tactical display as more Black Armada ships fell to the kinetic bombardment. Sir, we're actually winning. Their ships are tough, but they're not invincible. The largest Black Armada vessel, a 5-kilometer monster that served as their command ship, tried to escape as the battle turned against them. But Coalition Admiral Jan Mack had positioned her fastest ships to cut off its retreat. This is for Rigel Prime, she transmitted as her ship rammed the obsidian giant at full speed. The explosion lit up the galactic core like a new star being born. When the light faded, the Black Armada was finished. The ancient machines had been designed to cleanse the galaxy of biological contamination, but they had never faced biology's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, cooperate, and refuse to die quietly. Kim J looked out at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships, battered but victorious. Signal all vessels. The threat is ended. The galaxy is free. Humanity had entered the battle to save the innocent. In the end, they had saved everyone.